Gaming Morning Show continues. Thanks for being with us. We are getting ready to talk to Terri Peters, who is one of the folks from Yahoo who has written a nice piece. You can link to this here in the chat. I will go ahead and share that with you right now. This is about kids turning to video games to help with anxiety. I'm going to ask Sean, if you can hear me, Sean, to drop out of the Skype call, and we're going to talk to Terri and kind of go from there. This is a pretty exciting deal because I have really dealt with this, Terri, myself when it comes to dealing with stress and anxiety over the course of this particular pandemic, right? It's taken a big toll on me. I'm a social extrovert. And so when I read your piece talking about what it's like to deal with stress and anxiety, it really resonated with me. So we really thank you for taking the time to talk to us about this morning. Can you describe your own experience with video games and the pandemic?
Sure. So, like everybody, I think at the beginning of the pandemic, I had all this anxiety, and Animal Crossing came out, the new one. And we got to where all of us had a Switch. It was insane. We all bought a Switch, we all bought a cartridge, and we would just sit around and play it. And it was so helpful for, I think, kind of distracting and stopping all of those racing thoughts and the what if. And so I kind of put it away for a while. And lately, I've just had some personal things kind of going on, and anxiety was raising back up. And I pulled it out, and I felt like it really helped again. And I would sit and, water my crops and catch fish or do whatever in Animal Crossing, and it would kind of calm me down at the end of the day. So that's kind of where this story came from. Is I thought, well, if it's helping me, I bet it helps kids too. And we got into these interviews that I did for the story and found that it does. And I think that's something that we need as parents, right? Is to not feel like they shouldn't be on video games, they shouldn't be on screens. Like, maybe sometimes it's okay, and maybe sometimes there's a benefit.
Yeah, we already have Austin Attack in our chat saying also got Animal Crossing during the pandemic, and the Animal Crossing by its nature, right, is community, because you're building a community as you go, and there's many games that are like that. And it was interesting too because my therapist has been huge to me during the course of the pandemic, and you spoke to a therapist for the story. How are they utilizing and discussing video games with kids?
Yeah, the therapist I spoke with is based in California. His name is Monet Goldman, and he uses video games in his therapy sessions. So, he was saying he may sit down, kind of that side by side play with a kid, and they're playing a game, but then he's like, oh, so how are you feeling? What's going on? And kids are so much more likely to talk to you when that's going on. And so, one of the things he said that I really pulled out of it as a parent was, as parents, sometimes they want to talk about Minecraft, right? And they want to talk about Roblox, and we get to where we're like, no more, please. I don't want to see another thing you built. But really, that's such a good way, number one, to let them know that you care about what they're doing. And number two, to make them talk to you. Because if you say, how was your school day? They're going to say, fine. But if you're sitting next to them and, oh, how's that going with your friend? And that kind of thing, then they're a lot more likely to open up. So that was one of the things he said. And then also just that it's legit. I mean, it's a distraction. It can get your head out of that hamster wheel of, what do I do next? And how am I going to fix this? And what's going to happen with this situation at school or at work for adults or whatever it is, that, sitting and doing that and gaming, and it can really distract you and put your thoughts in other places, which is a good thing. It's not always bad.
And then how about stories you've heard from other parents? Like, have you heard any unique stories coming from them, how it's helped their own children?
Sure. Yeah. I talked to a mom and a dad, that their daughter has generalized anxiety disorder, and she was having panic attacks. And they found that if she just picked up that Switch and did something to get her brain off of it, it would help her kind of regulate, and bring those symptoms down. But the dad also told me that he tells both of his kids, I think they're 11 and 7, that he tells them, that feeling you get when you're about to like beat a boss or beat a really hard level or do this thing, and you're like, I cannot, I don't know if I'm going to do it. That's actually really good, because you can tell your kids that same feeling is what you feel when you get all cranked up and anxious about something. And I loved his quote. He said, I tell her that those feelings might be uncomfortable, but they're not dangerous. They're not going to hurt you. And so it's no different than when you feel that way in gameplay. And so you can apply that to your own life and go like, okay, I feel that feeling, but I can also bring it down. And I really liked that.
I love that.
Yeah, that's very wise parents. I
Yeah,
love
yes, yes.
Well, and you link it will again share the story from Yahoo. You have links to talking about how the pandemic has kind of caused a crisis in mental health, even though there were some building blocks for mental health with children. You referenced, as early as 2018. So by no means, right, was this something that is only pandemic related. But what stood out to me about some of the links that you shared as a parent myself is it can get frustrating to hear the same thing over and over again. Like, oh, I want to play Switch. I want to play Switch. Or I'm doing this in Minecraft. I'm doing this in Minecraft. But when you talk about how that's a form of expression, right, and something that helps you relate, plus you can see like the emotional outbursts is way that the kid is maybe demonstrating that they're not handling their anxiety. Some of those things really stood out to me. I guess my last question for you is, as you see the pandemic continuing, right? Omicron is surging. What are some things that you think we should be mindful of going forward as the pandemic continues?
Oh, I mean, are we talking in reference to gaming or?
And, I mean, there's a lot. That's a complex question, but yeah,
I know.
certainly how video games can help.
But as far as gaming, I just again, all of these experts kind of reiterated over and over that we beat ourselves up so much and we're thinking, oh, too much screen time. And it's not true in this situation. It's okay for them to distract. And also, it's okay for them to connect online with other people, classmates, or even, my son is 13 and he's in Discord all the time. So it's okay for them to make that connection because sometimes they're not getting out of the house. But the other thing I would say is, the boundaries. I think one of the people that I spoke with was talking about, making sure that your kid understands why you also have some screen time boundaries, or maybe why a game isn't age appropriate. And that as long as you include them and they understand the why behind it, they're more likely to, accept that and not say, oh, you never let me play or whatever. So I think that's important. I think, both giving ourselves some slack because, man, as parents, we're going through it too. And it's okay to need a break. And it's okay to say, hey, why don't you go play the Xbox for a little bit while we watch Netflix or whatever, right? I mean, we're all surviving. We're in survival mode. So that would be my non-expert advice.
Your Animal Crossing island in pretty good shape?
It is. It's getting better. It was very neglected. I came back in tons of weeds and craziness. But yeah, I'm loving all the new updates and the DLC with, Happy Home, the building islands and all of that stuff. So I'm not a super gamer, but I'm a mom gamer. So I like it.
Terri Peters is a senior lifestyle editor for Yahoo. Thank you so much for talking to us about kids' anxiety and video games. And we'll be sure to link through to the article and look for some future work from you as well.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Terri Peters, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
Gaming Morning Show.